I never used to like carbonated water. Not sure why, just never really liked it. I would prefer just regular water, but lately I just can't get enough of these bubbly drinks. I've been having like 3 or 4 a night. It's getting a bit ridiculous. I even bought this Yeti can holder because I'm drinking so many of them. In this video, we are checking out Children of Morta for the iPad. Children of Morta delivers an emotionally rich, fast-paced action RPG experience with rogue-lite design. It was developed by Dead Mage and published by PlayDigis. The game revolves largely around the Bergson family, a lineage of heroes tasked with defending their world from an ancient corruption. Each family member possesses their own unique abilities, ranging from, swordplay to archery, which offers a variety of playstyles, which is quite neat, quite unique. What makes the experience really stand out is that the story is deeply intertwined with the gameplay. So it forces players to switch characters frequently to explore all the different abilities while strengthening the family bond. This mechanic ensures that every session feels meaningful, and even in failure, there's growth, not just for the character in the game, but you as a player. So, from my personal experience playing Children of Morta on my M4 iPad Pro, the game runs beautifully. Very smooth, very responsive gameplay. However, the frame rate seems capped somewhere between 30 and 60. It may be at 60, I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like it's at 60, which is a bit disappointing. There's no settings to adjust graphics or performance, so you're kind of locked in with what you got. This may disappoint some players who prefer to fine-tune their visuals like I do, especially when you have something like an M4 iPad Pro that's maybe more capable than the average device. I want to make use of those capabilities, and in this case I can't. I did test the game using an Xbox Series S controller, and support is excellent. Controls are intuitive, easy to pick up, which is excellent. Aiming with the the range characters, like the archer character Linda, felt very natural with a controller, but it can be a bit difficult to hit the enemies sometimes. It's difficult to kind of get that aiming down perfectly. I've also noticed that tapping the attack button rapidly ends up attacking quicker than if you just hold it down. In some games, like Diablo, for example, if you hold down the attack button, I don't believe it attacks any slower or faster than if you were to just kind of click the button as quickly as you could. But in this case, in this game, it does actually attack quicker if you click the button as fast as possible. Switching between controller and touch input, it is possible, but you do have to restart the application, which I've noticed that some players were reporting this is a bit frustrating. In my case, I only played with the controller, so I mean, this doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not even sure why you would want to switch between a controller and touch controls, so rapidly. Why would it be such an issue that you have to close the app and then reopen it? I'm not too sure, but just something to make note of. While most of the controller experience is positive, a few players online have encountered issues with certain controller models or missing input functionality. Something to be aware of, but it does seem to be rather isolated cases. The gameplay is heavily focused on dungeon crawling with procedurally generated levels packed with enemies and traps and the occasional health drops. Health doesn't drop very often, so something to be aware of. On the hard difficulty, health potions, they're very sparse. You need to dodge and block and attack with great precision. After testing the melee-focused father, John, and his daughter, Linda, who uses a bow, I found myself gravitating more towards the melee combat style. However, John actually uses a shield for additional defense, and I was sort of struggling to get the blocking timing right. So I ended up playing him more like Linda, where instead of blocking, I was often dodging instead, even though he's not as agile as his daughter. That was just the way I preferred to play. Enemies are relentless, with some of the enemies actually capable of dodging your attacks and others retaliating immediately after being hit. So the game does teach you early on that positioning and timing, they're crucial, particularly against the mini bosses or the champion enemies that you encounter in the dungeons. It took me 3, maybe 4 attempts to reach the first dungeon's boss, which is a giant spider. At least I think it's the dungeon's boss. I didn't get past it, so I'm not sure if that's the end or not. I'm assuming it is, though. This giant spider boss summons minions and spawns this kind of like web attack that coats the map and it slows you down. The fight is quite challenging. You have to manage the minions and you have to dodge the boss's attacks. But the game, it rewards you with careful observation and strategic thinking. That said, I wasn't able to actually beat the boss, so yeah. It's worth noting that no 2 runs are exactly the same in the game, thanks to the randomized dungeon layouts and enemy types. That keeps the gameplay fresh and challenging, and it encourages you to experiment with different characters and strategies. A major highlight of Children of Morta is the progression system. Every run earns resources that can be used to upgrade skills and health and abilities across the entire Bergson family. This gives the game a sort of satisfying loop. Even if you fail, you're always improving, and a new story segment is always unlocking as time progresses. The further you kind of get through, the more of the story unlocks for you, which is quite neat. Additionally, the game encourages players to switch characters often. Using the same character repeatedly actually causes them to get fatigue, so reducing their effectiveness until they rest. This mechanic ensures that you are experiencing each character's unique abilities, whether it's Lucy's rapid fire spells or Kevin's stealth attacks. You're constantly switching between these characters. The balance between the narrative and the gameplay is exceptional, with each family member's personal journey being woven into the overall story, which I found quite neat. Visually, the game stands out with gorgeous, colorful pixel art, and I mean really gorgeous, and it's detailed. The animations are really neat to look at, and it brings the whole world of Morta to life, I found. Each dungeon has its own sort of distinct atmosphere. Again, reminds me a lot of, the dungeon crawling games like Diablo. They have different lighting effects and subtle environment details that enhance the sort of immersion that you feel as you go through the dungeon environments. The narration adds this sort of emotional depth to the story as well. There's this voiceover that feels more like a storyteller kind of guiding you through the family struggles. The soundtrack also complements the gameplay perfectly. Atmospheric music that is constantly sort of shifting between peaceful to intense during the battle scenes. Sound effects are equally as impressive, adding weight to every attack and giving audio cues for enemy movements, which becomes very crucial as the difficulty increases. Critically, Children of Morta has been well received on most platforms from what I can tell. This includes mobile. Players seem to appreciate the tight gameplay, the deep narrative, and the family dynamics that add emotional weight to the game experience. However, Some reviews have pointed out minor bugs and frustrations, such as the occasional input issues with certain controllers and the lack of in-depth graphical settings. I didn't experience any input issues during my play session, which was about an hour long to start off with, but I did notice, and I didn't really like the lack of graphical settings on my iPad. Despite these complaints, though, most players feel that the positives far outweigh the negatives when it comes to this game. Many compare it the progression system in the game to popular titles like Hades, noting how satisfying it feels to grow stronger after every run. For a mobile game priced at around, I think it's 10 Canadian dollars, Children of Morta offers incredible value, in my opinion, especially compared to AAA titles on the App Store. Whether you're playing for the story, the challenge, or just the joy of experimenting with different characters, the game seems to have a lot to offer for everybody. The blend of rogue-lite mechanics, engaging combat, and meaningful character progression makes it an easy recommendation from me. The difficulty can be steep, I will note, especially if it's on hard mode, but the game does reward your patience and strategy, ensuring that every victory feels well earned. In summary, Children of Morta is an exceptional addition to the iPad's growing library of high-quality games. If you enjoy narrative-driven experiences or challenging roguelites, this game is an absolute must-play. Whether you're playing casually or aiming to conquer every dungeon, the Bergson family's adventure and journey is going to keep you hooked, I guarantee it. And that is it for this one. I will see you in the next.